Hello, everyone. Welcome to Brush Sauce Theater, Episode 6. I'm Tyler Edlin with Adam Duff here, and
Howdy.
we'll be doing this judging the creature contest for this month.
Yes, and a hell of a month this has been, hasn't it? Yeah, and a lot of submissions and some pretty fabulous work, I might add.
Yeah,
We
I'm
were
really
both kind of
excited about
floored
this
when we
one.
saw how many people submitted their work this month, so it's going to be pretty exciting.
It's taken me all morning so far to process how awesome all of these really are.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
So I think what I'm thinking, Tyler, is we're probably going to have to just, in order not to make this 6 hours long, we might have to kind of have to get to the point a little bit faster and not dwell because we have a tendency to go off on tangents when we're looking
yeah,
at people's work because it's exciting. But we'll try to get to the point a little quicker just so this video isn't
yeah,
too long.
good to note too. Don't be offended if we kind of gloss over your particular piece a little quicker than someone else's, because that probably just means there's less to kind of pick apart about it.
Yeah.
You know, so that's generally a good thing.
No news is good news. Yeah.
That's my motto.
All right.
So you found we're going to start with Marius's, right? The one on screen there.
Yeah. Well, this is the first one that I opened up here. We were both extremely impressed with this piece of artwork. Now, what's the theme? Just so everybody knows where we're going with
I
this.
think we left it pretty open when we were talking on the forums. It's just any kind of creature. So I
Creature?
guess in this case we have this is more of a mech, but it's definitely creature inspired as we can
Yeah.
see, and it's totally fine. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so let's pick this bad boy apart here. So, uh, mech design, definitely like a very industrial mechanical type of spider inspired piece. I personally love the scale design and I love the design altogether. I think it's very it was very well thought out, very meticulous, and you brought in just the right amount of actual creature anatomy into it to make it fun. It was actually very exciting. It's a very exciting piece of artwork. And tell me what you're thinking.
I think this is one of those cases where it's just executed really well,
Yeah,
because this is like a perfect draft of something that you may supply to like a modeler, or in a production line. It might go down. This is a perfect. What I'm trying to say, it's a perfect idea to get approved to take it further, getting it modeled, getting it rendered, because this supplies enough color and texture information without going without like that huge time investment that something like photorealistic may require. And it gets the idea across very clearly, because the draftsmanship in this is the quality of it is really high.
it's solid. Yeah, and I mean in 3D, applying textures, applying different types of materials and stuff like that, rendering. You don't necessarily need that in 3D production. What 3D artists are more concerned with is the actual design, is the creation of an actual character. So the fact that you've really answered that question,
Hmm.
you've really answered it really well. So there's two enthusiastic thumbs up for this piece of artwork. I really can't pick it apart. If you wanted perhaps to add some kind of lights, or to add a little bit of life to it, like have certain lights turn on or something like that to show that it's active. In this particular case, it
Yeah,
looks like these guys are
absolutely.
working on it, so it's been shut off, right?
Hmm.
But that's something to take into account. You might or might not have considered that. But apart from that, there ain't a whole lot I can say to pick this piece
And,
apart.
and if you wanted this to be like one of those kind of showcase portfolio pieces for yourself, do some call outs on this where you do like
Yeah.
separate design elements of like the turret alone, or this little Gatling gun, or maybe what the pilot's outfit. Because I know you in particular do a lot of character designing. So having all that on like one giant spreadsheet as a portfolio piece, if that's something you're looking to do, that would look amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Here, let's full screen this bad boy. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm at a loss for words for this piece of artwork. When you nail it, you nail it. So, you know.
This is my
So,
favorite part, this little scout drone that just plops out of there.
oh, this little guy. Yeah, I always love these. You know what this actually makes me think of is Machinarium, the game.
Yep.
A little character that comes in at the beginning. One of my favorite games, personally. So I
I
love
know,
it.
I love it. All right, next one.
Okay, they're random here. I think they're actually in alphabetical order. So, all right. Ooh, nice, nicely
Yes, I like
done.
this one. By
Yeah.
Marcus.
Okay. Can I start?
Absolutely.
All right. First thing is I love the color. I love the nice diagonal composition. It gives a nice sense of movement. The only little thing I would be careful with is out of all of this, the only thing I would do is move this little hippo guy over to the side, just because of the tangent that's created here. It
There
creates a
is
little
that
bit of visual confusion.
Yeah, that's the only kind of beef with this I really have as well. You know, that perfect tangent where the hippo's mouth is hitting the tip of the tail.
Yeah, yeah. Just that little thing is just a little bit of an eyesore. And what else could I say about this? You're applying texture and like a nice use of form in the shadows.
I I think the texture on the monster is very well done.
Yeah,
I
very
would,
nicely
if
done.
I had to push something a little further, or just for the sake of clarity, like on the back here, I'd have like a little rim light of that from that sky, kind of coming down and picking up some of these highlights, like kind of like along here. But I'd have that edge just a little bit highlighted to make that really clear.
Along the head, or where are you looking
Right.
here?
Oh, I'm sorry. On my screen, I'm showing it with
Oh,
my
okay.
mouse. It's just a little right on the back spine, going down into the tail.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and what I'm thinking here as well, what might be important is some kind of light or some kind of a bit of an atmosphere here, because it's a very diffused lighting scheme. It's a bit of an overcast lighting scheme here, which is really nice, but a little bit of a value, slightly stronger value shift between the front part of the body and the back, just to help that the tail end recede a little bit because it's a bit clumped up here. Here we see a bit of a value jump, but here not so much. I would just raise the value a bit to
I
get a stronger overlap here.
unless it goes against the total concept, that you have, for the creature, I would have put some kind of specular or some kind of light, on like these little eye socket things, just to kind of indicate maybe kind of like the glossiness of like an eye. Unless he doesn't have them, of course, but that's something that I think would be a cool idea.
And it's an important focal point.
Yeah.
The focal point is the interaction between this creature and this creature, right? So you want a little bit of contrast and a little bit more clarity in probably the faces of these creatures. You generally contrast, like Tyler's saying, add a little bit of specularity in there to help this face pop, so you can see that visual connection between these two as they're acting together, right?
Hmm.
But that's
Other than
pretty
that,
much.
this is like kind of like that next stage of the last concept we saw. This is a concept of a creature in its habitat, kind of doing its thing. Like that. That's amazing. Well done.
Yeah, very nicely done. All right, so ready for the next one?
Hmm.
Bang! Ooh, I love this. So, like, I love the different world you get every time you look at a new piece. Here, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on this guy. All right,
This is, yeah, from Nick.
go for it. You start.
This, I forgot if you had a proper title for this, but with this like a mecha dragon type thing, which is, and I would categorize that as one of the most difficult things you could have possibly chosen for. There's just a lot of problem solving and obstacles in a concept like this, because the animalistic type features of like a dragon slash lizard, an amphibian, reptile, that type of thing, and you're trying to basically adapt that into like a mechanical form, which is like
Mm-hmm.
a huge task in itself, and
Mm-hmm.
then kind of you bring it to life in full scene here, complete with like a turbine
Yeah.
in that regard, I like the lighting, I like the pose. Uh, my I mentioned this before too. My only confusion is like how the wings and this turbine are exactly like the form of all of this is just really kind of confusing for me.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah,
Is
I can
that
see
me
what you
or
mean
or
actually.
or do
Yeah,
you?
no, I wasn't. I was looking at that too, and I think one of the things here is that this, to me, what I'm
Oh, is that a
interpreting this
single
is
wing?
as a single wing in the background, but we
I
don't
get
have a
it now.
foreground wing, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm confused.
Yeah, because we're missing, or maybe what it was the wings are up, but the mistake, I would say, if there was a mistake in this, is the fact that this wing is a little blurred and behind the head, which immediately, I think we both interpreted this as being a background wing, like it's attached to the further side of his body off in the background. In which case, we're missing that wing, right? Because you
I,
can't just have one wing going on there,
yeah, and I think this back right here, I'm pointing it right below the head. It was supposed to be that further wing,
right?
but like as we mentioned, this took me the last 3 minutes to kind of process exactly
Right.
what. Like I can definitely see now what he was going for with this design. But yeah, it's one of those again hard things to really show.
What I would say here, just for the sake of clarity, is you have the wing is overlapping the face. Now, the faces, you always have to be careful. Faces are always where people are going to look first. It doesn't matter what you're looking at. If there are eyes in a face, that's where we're going to go first, right?
Hmm.
And if that's the case, you want to create some nice negative space around that face for that face to be visible. Okay. So what I would do is I would be tempted to take this wing and shift it so that it created a nice dark area, negative space around this face to make it clearer, so that this face reads a little bit better. And this little this mechanical arm or whatever device you have here, I would personally take it out because it's creating visual clutter over a very important narrative design of this character, which is the turbine, right? So by having this here, if it's connected or not connected, it's very hard to tell. I would either make the connection clear, like showing how it connects and wraps around this middle part, or take it out, right?
Yeah.
It's creating a bit of visual confusion there.
On that note, this, just as a slight technicality, this is another tangent where the edge of the wing meets the head. But this is one of those images where you need to, reference is going to be your lifeline. You need to get like, and I mean dozens of reference photos of like tractor pistons, mechanical factories, where they manufacture cars, cranes, dockyards, anything that you can help to kind of increase the believability and, the technical nature of a creature like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the materials, metals.
Mm-hmm.
Look up pieces like metal armor, pieces of metal. Check out how that light, if there's a strong light coming in here, we're going to get a nice bright specular highlight off of these bits of metal. And that will help distinguish the difference between flesh and metal. It's rendering different materials. And that's what makes an image. When you see those differences in material and you render them out and respect the actual material you're looking at, that's where you get something that's very visually stimulating because it increases the believability of your piece by having those different materials juxtaposed together. Yeah.
All right, let's check out the next one. Great job, though.
Yes, beautiful work.
I appreciate your ambition.
Absolutely. Very different. Now we go from mechanical to organic.
Absolutely. I also love the wide variety of things we can take in on a contest like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess I'll start. I'm looking at this. I love the way this character the way you made that connection between the bush and the character itself. The storytelling of this piece is very clearly done. I immediately I make that connection of nature and the creature. He's not just standing alone; that he actually is a part of it and coming out. I love that about this piece. I think compositionally, it's a very nice, strong compositional piece as well. For me, the part that's confusing me is you have this object in the foreground in blur, okay, to suggest depth, clearly, okay, but value. I would say be a little bit careful with value. You have a nice sense of contrast here and here to draw the eye to where it needs to be.
And that against the background as well.
Yeah, so you have lower really contrast, absolutely. But then when something's what you're suggesting, if this was me, you got to remember that the composition is a camera. It's somebody, okay? It's somebody looking at that. Somebody can be a cockroach. That somebody can be, that somebody can be a bird. That somebody can be a person, right? But if I take my hand and I stick it right by my face, which is where that bush is, it gets dark. The light can't get in between my eye and there, right? So that bush should be dark. And by darkening that bush on the front right, you're immediately going and pushing that depth of the piece and really making everything jump. That bush in the foreground, the intention is to show depth of field, but the result actually flattens because the value's off. So just remember, if something's very close to your eye like that, generally it's going to be darker, right? Yeah. And higher contrast.
I have one more comment, too, about the composition. Right now, we're looking at, this other type of tangent where you have the branch that he's sitting on, was it perfectly perpendicular to the bottom of the frame. I think an image like this might benefit from a bit of a Dutch angle where you have everything kind of rotated a bit, so everything's kind of a little off center, and it will emphasize the kind of haphazardness of how this creature lurks way up in trees in an unsettling way.
Yeah.
And that type of angle lends itself well to that, but other than that, you really did good at rendering all the forms and their textures as well, which is...
yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just saying that's just really good that you were able to put both a design and, like Marcus's piece into a context.
Yeah.
That kind of shows... I can almost feel the tongue coming out of this creature or snatch up some birds.
Yeah. I just did bird gone, just a couple of feathers.
Unless he already has a name, I'm naming him Bird Snatcher.
Bird Snatcher. I can go with that. And just to add to that, the fact that you have a horizontal, the fact that you haven't used a Dutch angle, the fact that the branch is very much is giving you the compositional direction, right? The fact that it's horizontal calms the image down. It subdues it, which makes this a bit more of a peaceful piece. Now, in the face where we look at his face, he might be kind of a gentle monster. He's misunderstood. But if he is menacing, if he is going to eat that bird, by adding the movement, by adding a bit of a diagonal to that, you're adding a bit more of a dynamic. He's about to eat somebody. Mm-hmm. But remember, by keeping it horizontal, you are calming the piece down. So just do be aware of how you use line in your composition as well. Yeah.
All right, let's check out the next one. Awesome job, Paul.
Awesome job. All right, we got so many to go through here. It's crazy.
I know. I'm trying to time it the best I can.
Yeah. So beautiful work and beautiful rendering. I mean, this is the first one here where I'm really seeing a nice use of different materials. The high specularity, show a bit more of a shiny metallic type of face armor versus the skin that catches the light a little bit less. It's a little bit more matte, right? A little bit more diffused, which is beautifully done. And a nice use of silhouette and shadow. This reads absolutely fantastically.
Yeah, I like this. This is something that I would, if I'm browsing, for creature portfolios, this is basically a great template to what you can kind of see in a good one, where you have, the human scale, that's check. A little bit of his habitat, you show his planet, that's cool, check. You got like a basic breakdown, a clear drawing of the design itself of the creature's head, check. And then you have the design, rendered out, so we see his texture and his forms.
Yeah.
And then, you have just subtle background jazz, just to help the presentation that doesn't take anything away from the image. And it just kind of, I think it does add some subtle, some subtleness to the overall presentation.
Presentation, I think that's the key word. And I think that's something that, that everybody can benefit from learning something about this piece is... This stuff is going to go online. This is your portfolio. People are going to Google you, right? And putting a little extra effort into presentation instead of just having a character against a white background or against a flat gray background, adding a little bit of that kind of, the bit of that sci-fi background really gives us a mood and it's a very nice way of presenting work, right? Yeah. When you show this in a portfolio, whether directors admit it or not, whether clients admit it or not, this affects how they judge it, because they're looking at it and say, hey, this guy put some work into their piece. At least they deserve the attention of being looked at. But if you look at something that's just kind of like a character, white background, nothing really going on, it's just another portfolio submission. But this means, hey, I put a little extra effort. And people notice that, Directors do notice that. Yeah, absolutely.
Great job. I mean, if I were just going to say like anything critique-wise, I would just be kind of just pushing things further. Like, I think it's good, but it's like, look at some of those like really high-end creature designers out there, and you can like really just kind of check, some of the edge work and how they handle highlights, just little areas of this that are just a little like not as consistent as some of the others. I mean, you have the right areas of contrast are all there, but just you can always just push things like a little further, I suppose. Like you can show some veins maybe in the wing here or something, and then pick up some of the speculars coming along, like the ridge of that claw. It's just little touches, but it's it's basically all there.
Absolutely. And to add a little bit to that, just be careful with how you place the character in the scene. I would extend this because you have this breathes, you have a lot of nice negative space.
Good point.
But I would say extend this a little so you're not creating a tangent with your image. And secondly is take into consideration what level this creature is. If you're thinking of this in terms of a film or a video game, at what level? Is this an advanced creature, or is this somewhat of a more like a mid-level creature or more of a beginner creature? Like what kind of a zone would you put this in? And I would kind of place this in a bit of a mid-level because of his scale and his design. But if you wanted to really make him epic, you got to think, okay, how can I push the design of this character? How can I push this and add more
flair?
Yeah, blow it out.
Is he the mid boss or is he the end level boss?
The end level boss. Is he the kind of guy you're going to see when you're already beefed up and all armored, and this guy comes and kicks your ass? Is it an elite creature or not? Type of idea. I'm trying to avoid the word World of Warcraft as much as possible.
Some Monster Hunter comes to my mind as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, so just take that. That's a very good way of putting that into consideration, because when you're working in the industry, which my guess is probably already are, you're doing many different versions of creatures throughout, the series of a game. So you don't want to start too strong You know, you don't want to bottleneck yourself and hit a dead end. So there's always a slow progression towards a bigger and bigger and wilder design, depending on the eliteness of that particular creature, right?
Hmm. Great
Yeah.
job, Sam.
2 thumbs up. All right. Oh, sweet. Check this out. All right, let's zoom in so we can get all those nice
I like
details.
this one.
Yeah, very much so. Now this is like, you want epic, you got epic.
This is the final boss.
Yeah, there's a person in the scene, but they're only about a pixel. That's it, right there. It's just a little
A little
pixel. That's
guy.
the character right there. Yeah, that's a that. Yeah, I'm not poking this bugger in the eye anytime soon. That's for sure.
This is like something that I could definitely see in like a video game concept art book where they're coming up with all the ideas for like this final boss. It's they always take it down in some borderline abstract hell type of environment, and you're
Yeah,
you're just going. You got your little squad down here, and you're just trying to hack away at the face. I like that. I like that a
yeah,
lot. I mean, critique wise, the only thing you could do is just really kind of polish. Like in comparison, these kind of rocks and a lot of this
yeah.
foreground, which is really that's an important part of this image because like 50% of this image is like kind of foreground and plain. Like I would almost find a way to almost kind of enlarge or make him more of a presence, and then like kind of scaling him up or moving him slightly down and kind of just making this maybe a little smaller, or and then just polishing it a little bit
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's such a prominent part of the scene, but the quality of that is not as high as we say the design or presentation of the creature itself.
Yeah, look at film. Actually watch films and watch how in film when they do your wide, medium, and close-up shot, right? And why? What's the purpose of a wide, medium, and close-up shot? What's going on in the movie? And no, Michael Bay's not a good example because he's just, he just
Shaky cam
uses
everywhere.
shaky cam and high intensity. He just, without purpose, just, full visual stimulation 100% of the time.
I know there's
Use
no
the more
contrast to that.
there's no context. It's just pure intensity. But everybody always loves hating Michael Bay. But yeah, you got to think, if my scene is there, why? If I see all that water, do I need that much water to convey to my audience that that he's actual kind of sitting in the water type of creature, a lagoon type of creature, right? And if there's that much water, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's because there should be a character down there doing something, approaching, or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, I think we do need some type of scale reference in here to really sell the idea. I think it needs that human scale because
Yes.
I'm imagining how big this is, but you may have designed him so he's not that big.
Yeah.
Make that clear to the audience.
Yeah. If you put a huge foot next to him, then he's only this
It
big.
looks like he's dead and he's already slain. It looks like this blood just coming out of his mouth and trickling down, but like
Yeah.
maybe show some weapons, maybe like maybe some dead fallen party members that didn't get re-raised yet, or you could sell this concept of the monster
Yeah.
really and really that presentation.
And saturation. Be careful with your saturation of colors. It's very heavily
Mm.
saturated. Now, this does give it a bit of a stylized look, right? It does give it a bit of a stylized look, but when you go too heavy saturation too fast, again, you dead end yourself. So start gentle and gently work your way up towards a punch. And when I look at your painting, I want to immediately go, I know where to look. Right? And that saturation and contrast is going to pull my eye where I want it to look first. And in this particular case, if I look away and look at your image, the first thing I see is the water. But there's nothing happening in the water. So why am I looking at the water? And that's because you have that rich color that's jumping out in my face. So you might want to subdue that and add a little bit more richness to the color of the creature, or especially the face, so that my face pulls there.
Yeah,
right? My eyes draw to that spot.
desaturate the water. Maybe add some subtle bits of green to it.
Yeah.
It's just way too blue.
Yeah.
It's Caribbean.
Caribbean. Yeah. Absolutely. So
Right.
yes, another two.
Awesome job, Vincent. Though.
Yeah, I want to get something that sucks. Unfortunately, not yet. I want to go, this is garbage.
Look at this guy.
I just want to be cruel, Yeah. This is fantastic.
I love
Holy
this. I think I'd like to start this off by saying this is like
Huh.
good use of photo texture.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
Nice.
overdone. It's clear that you used it, and for good reason.
Yeah.
You get the rim light kind of coming with the light trickles through the edges of him, just as you would, if you're looking at a bear, and you got the skylight of like this is a really good job of doing like overcast lighting, which is I feel one of the more difficult ones to kind of pull off
Yeah.
well.
Diffuse lighting is always, to make it look.
You look through my
convincing.
gallery. I don't have many diffuse lighting shot, and I want to do more, but for this reason, they are hard to pull off, and you did it well.
really beautiful use of color, a really beautiful use of color, and like very subtle use in the waters. Like this is a very I don't know if who's the artist here, Zenek,
Cynic.
or Zenek, Zenek Nieważny,
Hmm.
if that's Polish.
That's why I let you do the the names. I
Nieważny.
wouldn't have
I
come
know
out
because
that
my
far.
family's Polish. That's why, so I can't speak Polish, so please don't start a Polish conversation with me. But yeah, um, but yeah, no, a very fine art approach to color. I'm very curious if Janek actually uh, has a fine arts background because I love the colors used here. Um, Now, if I was to pick apart a little bit here, I have no problem with, as far as there's might be a bit of a disconnect between background and character. The very high use of contrast in the character compared to the scene does create a bit of a cut and paste feel to it. I would be tempted to maybe only leave some darks around the face, the inside of the mouth, the eyes, but take down some blacks in the rest of the body to help it kind of integrate a little bit
Up in
more
here.
naturally into the scene.
Hmm.
Yeah, like around even in the all across the body and here. And furthermore, to have a little bit of a reflected light. You see this warm light that's hitting across the bottom? That's not necessarily justified because that's warm sunlight almost. And I would cool that down a little bit. Again, like mostly the blend. And you have all this water, you'd want to have some of that water bouncing some light off the bottom. And I think that would make a huge, huge difference. I think
Hmm.
maybe the last little finishing touch that will really polish off this piece. A little bit of contrast. Be careful with your warm tones. This is a bit warm for the piece. And some bounce light. And I think it would be
Yeah,
perfect.
great
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Beautiful. 2 thumbs up. Oh, God, another good one. Okay, I'm really getting annoyed with this.
Another happy little tree guy.
All right, so you got first dibs on this one. Go for it.
Yeah, I like this, and I like the pose, and I like the context of it, and I want to know what this little guy's story is. Like, is this part of him? He's suck. It looks like he's sucking him up. It like he's like a little bug flying around.
Yeah. And he
I,
catches him and
I
sucks him
like
in.
that.
Yeah.
The only thing I think for me that leaves a little to be desired is kind of a little bit more work on the texture of the skin.
Yeah.
Like that, I think, which is a little more research with some one of those high def like magnified images you can find of like how to do again like the specular highlights. I think a little bit like on here and like if I'm thinking of kind of like frogs and certain types of newts when I'm looking at the skin as is.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I'm
A little bounce light in here, would really describe that for him. Like
yeah,
very subtly, of course.
bouncing off the branch and maybe hitting off a little bit here.
Yeah.
There is a distinct there I mean there is a very distinct light direction. We do get the sense of volume and even a little like you're even getting into ambient occlusion a little bit in here, which is nice
Yeah.
too. It creates a nice sense of depth. I'm thinking perhaps to have a little bit more depth between each one of these things. It feels a little. It actually, it's kind of interesting. It's hard to say how I feel about certain areas because this almost feels like those slimy stick things. This kind of like it's kind of this slimy. Like almost like booger
Hmm.
toy that kids have that
Yeah, I know what
and
you're
it's
saying.
like the hand that can stick and pick up paper. It kind of has that feel to it,
Yeah,
which I like.
and it have those really kind of sharp, little glossy, specular highlights going around like the tops and like, the form where the lights are.
You
It
know
kind of
what?
give it that borderline slimy, that moisture type of feel to it.
I feel slimy. Whether that was the intention or not. Yeah, there's sliminess going on, but what's actually I'm finding what's missing is a bit of anatomy. I can't quite get how this creature is
It's
moving and
put together.
articulating
Yeah, like up
where
in
the
here,
anatomy
like with
is.
the joint and stuff.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks
just
like
kind of
a
a
Stretch Armstrong.
blob, and I'm not quite
Like, is there
getting.
is there like a muscle structure, going in connecting how how
Just
like yeah,
yeah,
like you would see muscles coming around the shoulder and then with the foreground, but maybe not. I don't know.
maybe not. Yeah, it's just kind of like this whole droopy. This line is a very strong line here, a very droopy line, and I'm feeling kind of just hanging there,
Hmm.
and it makes it a little bit hard to read. But again, saying the word anatomy can throw you in the wrong direction and make you think, okay, well, I'm going to add muscles to this. It's like
Yeah,
it's like a snail creature, But even a snail has certain. It's that sense of form, the sense that he's actually whether or not I wouldn't add muscles. It would kind of look a bit weird.
yeah, no, this something doesn't need muscles. It's kind of like a poor example.
Yeah, but just kind of like the show that he's not just hanging off of this branch, to actually show that the lift the arm a little bit. You know, show that arm that's grabbing to show that he's actually lifting
Like up in
himself.
here, you could
Right?
have lines to support, this motion of it reaching up and wrapping around. Right now, it's just like stop, 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 and it just there's a slight disconnect going on, like in that area particularly for me.
Yeah, just a little something. But apart from that, and another thing I might do is the overall image is very green. It's very like almost monochromatic. You have a little bit of a desaturated green blue in the body as well. But I think what this image needs is a little bit more warmth. We have a little touch of the red here, okay? But I would say some, cool off the background to recede it. Add some like
Hmm.
cyan to the background to cool it off, but still keep it in that cartoony feel. You don't want to go blue necessarily. Have some warmer tones in the foreground, cool it off in the background to help it recede, and add a touch of warmth. A couple of red leaves in there, orange leaves, or something like that to balance the whole palette.
Yeah, I would. I like how it's vignetted, but again, if you want to take this up to like a real, up the presentation level of the image as a whole, make it not quite as obvious that you kind of just whipped around the edges with a custom brush. Like get in there and render out different
Yeah.
types of leaves. Like you said, get some purple ones, get some magenta ones, get some greens and blues. A lot of stylized, games and animations really excel at that. So you just that might be something to kind of research if you
Yeah.
decide to revisit this.
Yeah. Loosen up a little bit with color, I'd say. Yeah. That'll definitely make a huge difference for sure. But beautiful work.
I can't
All right.
pronounce that name. I'm sorry.
Acastanox. Acastanox. There we go. 2 thumbs up, Acastanox. All right. So now, here we have by Antoine de Quelque Chose. I'm not sure. Centaur Beetle. All right.
The Beetle King.
The Beetle King. Very cool. I like the kind of vignette style to it. Just I love pieces like it. Kind of one of the reasons why I love Kea Sedera's work. She has this little
Hmm.
figurine type of thing. I want this guy on my desk type of cool idea. Yeah. So you want me to start for this one?
Absolutely.
Design, originality. I love the fact that you made an insect human hybrid and then you brought the insect back into the face. I love that. Okay. I absolutely love that. Right off the bat, I think that's something that
I
really jumps
I
out at
want
me.
to jump on board with you with that. I love this. Two thumbs up on the design alone. Like I just love this idea and the design.
Yeah,
It's great.
absolutely.
I've
Yeah.
never I've seen a million centaurs, but I've never kind of seen one of these before.
It's actually making me want to do one.
My
you
hats
know,
off. My hats off to this.
Hats off to you too there. Yeah. Now, what jumps out at me is immediately what doesn't work is that it's all a single palette of green and high saturations of green everywhere. You have the little touches of red in there, but the saturation's too heavy and too uniform. And what that does ultimately is it flattens. Flat color flattens the image. Color needs variety in order to feel real. Okay, so in here, you've got slight variations between the green, a little bit less saturated here, a little bit more here, but I would go with different shades, and I wouldn't add this uniform level of saturation throughout the entire piece. I would tone some down and add a little bit more saturation where need be. I would use warmer tones around focal areas and cooler desaturated tones in areas that are less important, right? And vary it up. We need some kind of a color variety because the fact that it's all one piece almost looks like, like those green soldier figurines.
Hmm.
It's one solid green color,
Yeah.
right? You need variety. If you don't have variety, the eye accustoms itself too quickly to the image and gets bored. And what you want to do is you always want people to be able to move around and go, when they get tired of one color, they move to another and back and forth. You want people to be able to look back and forth. So try to find a color that harmonizes with that, that's in a different hue that helps balance the whole thing together.
Yeah, your design alone could really carry this concept really far. But yeah, what leaves a little to be desired, in my opinion, is just that the overall kind of presentation with that. Like if I was going to concept this, for instance, this is just my opinion. This would be more along the lines of like a color sketch.
Yeah.
And if this got approved by the art director, I would up the resolution on this by like 3,000 pixels and get in there and really start noodling out
Yeah.
the shapes, the texture, and basically the forms to really kind of push all these ideas.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this is kind of like the transitions are a little washed out. I do like how you thought to put the warm light for underlight here, but then this is all very just kind of loose and pardon me, like a little bit tossed together. Like it just needs like a lot of refinement in terms of polish to
Yep.
really make it like that's kind of like the like cinema or like AAA. Just quality in general.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
idea is there. It's
The structure's there, and noodle around and add the detail, because the detail is what's gonna, like they say, you want to catch a person's attention. That's the silhouette and the nice use of color and contrast. And then when
which
they look at
is
it,
like
you want
great.
people to be able to sit there and go, oh, look at the details. And it doesn't mean detail everywhere. It just
No,
means detail in important areas, the focal areas, so that people can come in and get a second level of appreciation. You want to get them and then
and
keep
keep.
them.
Yep.
But you don't want to get them and then lose them, right? Once you got them where you want them, if they actually click on your image, that means they like it. And once you catch them, you want them to stay, right? And that's how you get them to stay, by adding that little level of detail in there, for sure. Yeah,
Awesome job though.
yeah,
Really, really impressed by the design.
absolutely. I want to do one now, really bad.
I could make a whole race of these guys, and I'm like ready to go.
And I know you will too. And by tomorrow, you're going to have 84 of them. Ah, yes, of course, I know this painting very well. I'm not going to make any comments because this is my student who
Oh,
painted this. Yeah.
well, awesome. And so,
Yeah.
do you want to share with us some of the feedback you provided to get it up to this level?
I didn't share a whole ton of feedback in this. He actually did most of this himself.
Hmm.
This is by Antonio Steperts from Belgium, a ridiculously ambitious artist who never leaves me alone. He's part of my mentorship, my online mentorship, and this guy like calls me like 45 times a minute. I'm like, oh God, it's him again. I love him to pieces. But he really did 99% of this on his
Awesome.
own. My suggestions to him in terms of critique, because he has had critique for
Hmm.
this one, is the repeated use of color to create a color balance, because he only had it in the creature here. So I said, you need to bring this somewhere else in the scene. So the 1, 2, 3, right?
Yeah, and like you could have a little bit of that color pop up in some of the vegetation down and around over here to make it full circle.
Yeah.
Just a little sprinkle, because I can tell, other than that, it's very, I don't want to say monochromatic, because there is nice transitions with the blues and the greens and then up to the yellows, but that really just kind of helps, punch. Like if you look at the art for the Crudes, they have some
Yeah.
amazing jungles in this kind of level of saturation that I think
Right.
could really serve you well if you just kind of studied how those artists interpreted, nature and those types of forms.
Cinematic studies. Yeah, definitely a huge thing. Very huge thing. What else would I say about, I don't want to critique because I'm already,
Do you want me to say some stuff?
I don't want to, my teacher's going to start kicking in, and I don't want to I'll let you take the stand on this one.
Again, the level of polish is again inconsistent throughout this, and if you want to bring your work up to like that real kind of standout portfolio level, one way of doing that is just to kind of show you can either show people things they've never seen before,
Yeah.
which I'm willing to argue this is something I've never seen before. So that's like a good start. But the other way to do it is to really show how well you mastered your craft, and that is having this mastery over your brushstrokes and your level of consistency throughout the image. Like it's cool to have some lost edges and stuff in the background to show depth, but there's like a level there's like a fine line of finesse that you'll get through experience, trust me,
Yeah.
that you can really kind of just clean up a lot of these little edges, and like over here just that looks like there's an idea about to be implemented but never finished,
Yeah.
and in that, and again this side, and then clean up the edges. This is up close, you can tell because you did that right with the value, but clean that up. Like this side they're all really pointy, and you could, unless they're like bent over at like 90 degrees, you could see more of a point on these, and then maybe sprinkled like a little bit of detail
Overall
over here.
sharpness, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
something he's spending a lot of time working on. That it's the ideation. He gets caught up in the ideation and getting everything set up, and then you're nailing it on the head to push that level of cleanliness, sharpness, clean up some of those edges. Like I'm looking here, a little bit. Although you don't want to over refine areas that aren't in focus.
Yeah.
Adding that little bit of spit polish is all
Throughout,
it takes.
like it,
The last
yeah,
touches is very often the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful painting, right?
100%.
And coming in and slowing yourself down and coming in and adding that little bit of detail and refinement so that everything doesn't look a little bit too loose, right? You don't want it to be too loose in the end. Absolutely. All
So
right.
let's go. We're recording.
All right.
All right. So this piece is awesome.
By Atilgan Asikusun. I probably butchered your name, and I apologize, but it's an epic name. See, Adam. Adam is such a boring name. Atilgan. That's a noble name for an artist. So yeah, this is a good example of rendering.
Yeah, this is if I mentioned during the pieces at all about cleaning up edges and just rendering in general, this is like a good example of that.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean you always have to push rendering to this level. This is, you can tell the artist spent, I think it spent a hell of a long time working on this piece. Yeah.
It's the cohesiveness, though, of it. It's, good level of presentation.
Yeah. It's cleaned up, it's polished. This is the kind of piece that, people will stop and look at because you've demanded that through the amount of work that you've actually put into your work, right?
It's the edge work though. Like if that's for me when I'm looking at a lot of art, of budding artists or more of the beginners, it's just really kind of grasping how to control those edges.
Yeah.
That really set your work apart. And nobody ever talks about that, I feel, but it's the edges in a scene really can help the crispness and the fluidity of it all.
Absolutely. Now there's a bit of it looks almost like a bit of a rim light going on around the entire piece here. Okay, let's zoom out.
I think that was like a style choice, but again, it helps really just kind of push that design to the front and center.
Okay, now this is something that I'm noticing in terms of critique. As immersive as the surface quality is, like we get a nice sense of that surface quality by that mid-light, by that specular highlight that creates the rounded forms. What I'm not getting per se is a direct source of light. I can't necessarily detect the lit side from the dark side. And if we're looking at a scene like this, that's blue sky. When I see blue sky, I'm seeing direct sunlight. We don't have a diffused overcast light, which means we should have a portion of this body that's in the light and the other in the shadow, and that's how you're going to get that sense of three-dimensional forms.
You just need, a stronger core shadow that kind of runs along the inside of this right side of the creature, since the light is kind of on that upper left.
Yeah, you want to be able to distinguish light from dark, absolutely. And the other thing is, if you look up close at the face, look at the mouth. You see the inside of the mouth? Pay attention to your widths, okay? This mouth isn't just a strip of flat paper skin. This mouth has the actual corners, like if we come around the lips or around the eyelids, they all have a certain amount of thickness to it, right? And this cartoonizes a little bit too much your character. You want to see a little bit more width and volume. Pay attention to the volumes of your edges. That's something important to pay attention to here.
And I think it's noting that you are only able to pick up on that because of the level of rendering in this image. Like we wouldn't even be able to judge that on, many of the images just because the polish wasn't there, the clarity.
Yeah.
But that's, there's always, a give and a take. But I think in this case, it's a good thing that we can kind of analyze that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because this could get outsourced to, a prop studio, and this could be built, either digitally or, like a mannequin or something.
Yeah.
Because it's so well described.
Yeah, very well described. In terms of texture, in terms of form, if this was for a design piece, like for a studio, what you'd end up wanting, your video just froze up. Hopefully we're not losing this video here. I'm just seeing a picture of you like this.
Oh, I'm sorry. On my screen, it's fine.
Oh yeah, okay. As long as you're the one, you're the one recording. So yeah, it's the two-dimensionality of it. Like we have body, we have arm, body, and then rocks in background. We don't necessarily have transitional, like foreground, midground, background. We just have kind of everything's kind of placed in the midground here, like that. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to create more of an immersive depth, I would have a rock in the foreground and maybe something poking out in the background to get that.
Like just having this rock right here on the left, if you kind of cut this out, move it a little bit, and have it overlap coming down in front of this water, I think that's exactly how you could sell that.
Yeah, absolutely. That would help push the depth for sure. But that depends. I mean, to each their own. I would interpret this as a particular style, an approach.
Yeah.
But depending on, I don't know what your intention was with this piece. This is something we'd have to talk about personally for that, right? So, but
great job.
Yeah, beautiful work. Beautiful work. Ooh. Okay, this is Ben Reichart.
Yes. I
Uh,
love the design, Ben. That is awesome.
yeah, very
I like,
painterly.
yeah.
Yeah,
I love that head shape. I love how you get the eyes. I just really kind of like a lot. I mean, you've designed the form, which is really important.
yeah. I love this. I love this. Yeah, this is organic, and I feel something. Like I'm looking at this character, and I actually feel intimidated. I actually feel the scariness of this particular piece. The color choices, the use of light, beautiful use of light and contrast. I love the organic shapes in this. I love the fact that everything's grayed out. You know, it gives it a very, very melancholy, very depressing. I can see he's like he lives in this mud, you know. I love that feeling. You know, he really integrates very nicely with the scene.
I would just, if this is underwater, which it clearly looks like it is, I would just diffuse a little bit of this light a bit more and kind of, this looks like, kind of like a little overexposed. I just tone that down a little bit because light doesn't quite shine through, murky water or generally water in general that kind of strongly. And it might add to the eeriness of the creature if he was kind of, you see like the lightest parts on him picking up, either by like a rim light or, some of these highlights. I
Yeah.
feel like this whole white splash here just might be a little too distracting.
And it's not informative enough. Remember, anywhere where you look in your piece, be it important information or not, there's always got to be something going on. There's got to be a purpose to it. So just having murky water basically says there's nothing here. There's light and that's it. And what I would do is you don't want to detract from this very foreground focused piece. You have a nice depth of field because of it, but a little indication of maybe a little shape in that to show a rock, you know? Blurry as all hell, but a little rock there is telling your audience there's something back there, but it's very murky water. But as we see it there, it's just negative space. And negative space for the sake of negative space isn't informative enough. We want to understand, there is
Yeah.
something there. We just have a very hard time distinguishing it, right? I would add on as well as the monochromatic nature of this piece I really like. I think if you were to come in and start coloring things, you would kill the mood, but a very subtle temperature shift. A little bit of warmth in the light, a little bit of coolness in the shadow, or vice versa, right?
Yeah, under like image, what is it, color adjustments, you can adjust the highlights and the shadows on different sliders, and you can, just edge just a little bit of that yellow in the warmer, like that kind of, yellow and green, mostly yellow, can create is such a good palette for
Yeah,
creating mystery and even suspense. While
yeah,
blues and the shadows can kind of cool and tone things down.
absolutely.
Just having this as like a kind of like a duo or tritone image would really sell this idea without kind of going into full color.
Like, but almost invisible, you know,
Yeah,
just
very
enough to
subtle.
to sell temperature. That's it. But just a little bit, because to me, one of the things that really sells this painting the best is the fact that it is so gray. It is so
Yeah, it
desaturated. You know? Yeah.
it's like from like a '50s monster movie. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Would I have any particular critique to give this piece apart from that? Not particularly.
Let's
Not
check out the
particularly.
next one. Awesome job, Ben.
Yeah, beautifully done. Yeah. Ooh. Oh wow. Let me
We
see this.
got
I want to come up close and see Brooke.
Brooks Merman.
All right. Oh wow. Look at that.
Yeah,
I want to come in and see some of that detail.
I'm not sure if she finished this. I know she's been sick for like the last 4 days, but we'll. So I kind of
Hmm.
had to take a JPEG of it, posted on the thing. So that's why it's not quite as clear, unfortunately. I didn't have the raw JPEG for this one.
Okay. That's fine though. No, I can
But
get the intention. Beautiful use of anatomy.
yep,
Very nice anatomy in the arm.
and the
They got the
texture,
bit
the
of the
texturing
scapula there.
is top tier in this.
Yeah, and I love one of the things design wise, just from my personal opinion thing. One of the things that really sells this to me is that the human element of this character is very little in proportion to all of this elaborate fish detail. It reminds me, I had two fish when I was a kid. They were handed down for me when my friend Gino moved to New York. One, Mr. Mustache, and the other one was Floyd the Barber. All right. Mr. Mustache was the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life. He was, I think pregnant or fat, I'm not sure, but floated all that. So I always thought he was dead. He was apparently dead for 6 months. He would swim and then float back to the top. Off cue, eyes bulging. And then there was Floyd the Barber who is pure elegance. These elegant
I see a lot
fish
of elegant
details.
lines in this.
elegance of the fit. I love the design of this piece. Absolutely love it. And I love the fact that it's a little bit of human and a whole lot of fish. To me, there's something very powerful about that from a design perspective. I absolutely love that. Now, critique-wise, what could you offer in terms of critique?
Oh, for her, she took my mentor program, and we worked, and she'd taken several CGMA classes. But yeah, we always kind of just work on pushing the form, in which I think she really did. The only thing, if you're gonna push it further, is like I have nothing wrong with this at this stage at all. I really don't. I would just, if you're gonna, are you gonna color it? Are you gonna leave it in black and white? I mean, the options are all yours, and you have a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like for me, I love the contrast in this, but at the same time, I'd also love to see I'd love to see a bang up color job on this. And this could be like, this could promote the Merfolk for Wizards of the Coast Magic series.
Oh,
Like it could be
absolutely.
like this could be like on a 5 foot, tall, stand up,
Yeah.
at a store, at a convention. I could
As a
totally see this
standalone
there.
illustration, this sells itself. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would love to see this in color. I think my only comment would be just I want to see the progression of this piece. This demands color, though. In my
it
opinion, a
does.
piece like this demands color and beautiful use of color. Loose color. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think she will go to color when she feels better,
Yeah.
because I had talked to her about this piece, and I definitely think it had this so much potential here. I love
Oh,
it.
yeah. I think it's a very successful
Like
piece.
this is a good scroll down to that fin. Just one more thing before like that's great use of form change right here. This is all the core shadow where it connects the tail. You see a little higher right below that, and then it kind of goes to highlights, and then you can see that form kind of curving around towards the end of the bottom of the fin. Love it.
Beautiful.
Good
Beautiful.
use of
Beautiful.
form change
Slow
throughout.
clap, Brooke. Slow clap. And I have to have my pipe. Well done,
Oh my
Brooke. Well
God.
done. All right.
Eric's forest people. Don't trust the forest people.
All right. You start on this one.
I like the design of this little guy a lot, actually. Um, I think he also submitted one more, and maybe he's in the same race of characters, but I'm sure we'll get to him eventually as well. But I like how he's kind of got minimal equipment. He's got kind of like these druid robes, and he kind of just sticks to the forest, either enchanting things, or he seems like some kind of alchemist or getting into trouble. Whatever he's gonna do with those potions, like there's like a little sense of narrative I can see within him.
Yeah.
Like I'm like his eyes are almost like glowing to me right now. So like why I want to ask him, why is his eyes glowing? What is he doing with this stick? And I think when you can get the viewer to participate in an illustration or a concept even like this, where I'm starting to ask questions and wonder more about it, I think that's a successful job right there
Yeah.
on that merit alone.
Yeah. I
Because
feel I feel this character. Like I can feel his personality and I like him. Like I can actually have an emotional connection with your character, which is like rule number one. If you can't emotionally connect to your character, you're not going to remember it. You want people will always remember how you made them feel when they're looking at something. And this guy, he's endearing. He's got that sweet smile. You really injected a lot of character and personality into him, which I find is probably, in my opinion, the most successful part of this character design. I really
and
love that.
the forms and values are kind of all in check.
They're all in check. Silhouette. The readability of the silhouette, this arm over here on the right side, that pose in and of itself, if I'm going to pose my character holding
Super
my
difficult.
coffee cup, this in
For
silhouette won't read. You won't be able to understand what's going on here, right? So what you'd want to do is open up the pose, have him open it up like that so you can distinctly see bottle,
Yeah.
arm, you can see where the hands connect to the whole thing,
Like even
right?
if it's not like 100% anatomically correct, that's where you can use that artistic license that we all kind of have in the back
Oh,
pocket there,
absolutely, yeah.
and and that's why foreshortening is so tricky and considered one of the toughest things by many artists is just
Yeah.
kind of getting that trick in there to make that form really pop.
Absolutely. I also think for this one, I think it needs a little bit more contrast. If we actually look at this in grayscale, it's probably going to feel very muted. And what I would say
Yeah.
is add a little bit get some darks under the face to help pull it in. Some darks inside those mushrooms, that type of idea. The pouch, get some ambient occlusion. If you're not sure what ambient occlusion is, just look it up. You can see where the photons of light have a hard time getting to, like inside the flap of the pouch, you'd want a black in there, right? You want some nice uses of contrast around the face, inside the mouth. You want to get a nice dark inside the mouth to show some
Those
depth in the
crony
face.
little lips.
And a little bit of coolness again in the background, and that will make the character warmer and help him pop a little bit better.
Hmm.
And last but not least, push the design a little bit. Again, the mushrooms, I didn't notice them right away, right? They're little fine little details, but there's a
Maybe
little
have
bit of
some.
shyness in this
Yeah,
design. Push it. Make them a
that's
little
the
bit more pushed and interesting. Yeah.
that's the perfect way of saying that. Go, don't be afraid to go a little overboard. Over exaggerate some of the features or elements on your character. It can
You
really, really push the idea home.
Everybody's afraid of going overboard. You look at Peter Jackson, in that
Yeah,
whole scene with the Nazgul and the mace, and he kept saying, make it bigger," and people are going, "Are you
you got
mad?"
it. When in doubt, go bigger.
And you'd be surprised how far you can go without being ridiculous in art. You
Yep.
can really, really exaggerate stuff. Really, you can really push it. So I suggest, you know, like go all out, balls to the wall, go all out and try something crazy. Make, big. If it's too big, take it down. But you got to push your limits when it comes to character design.
Maybe yeah, like maybe he's had this like little apron of like a potato sack for his outfit. Maybe he's had that forever, and that means a lot to him. So maybe you could put like hand painted little etchings or designs on it, or
Yeah,
maybe like a little thing hanging off his little tote bag. Just like little details that
yeah,
can really help really sell the idea of him. Maybe he's got this is one element. If this is like the core piece of his armor or outfit, and he's got like this one element of like a bone, the shoulder pad. Maybe this is could be played apart in a few other little areas. Like maybe
yeah,
he's got a tool on his belt made of this,
yeah.
and it's little things like that that can keep and carry through the consistency.
That's
Um,
design. Yeah,
yeah,
that's pure design. Just
don't be
going.
shy of that.
Yeah. Like this actually, I put this in the context of the design for the Pandaren, right? I keep making bloody World of Warcraft references here today, but I will, so get used to it. But you look at the Pandaren, you look at the overall form, you see the characters, cool, panda, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I hate Pandaren. I think they're boring characters to play, but whatever, I
What do you
digress.
really think of that?
And how does that make you feel, Adam? And then I just start weeping online. But look at the design, the bottles, all the bottles and chains and buckles. That's what makes it fun. That's what makes people want to stare at that image for a long time. So go to town with detail and have fun adding design, add narrative. It brings the character out. It actually it puts that character in the context of a whole world rather than just being literally a humanoid creature, right? So,
And before we go to the next one, the other thing I would just mention is just polish up a little bit of these trees that are closer into the foreground. Like this transitions just like to ground texture,
yeah,
and there's no kind of like it looks like you went over this with a big blur brush. Like it's kind of has that again. I described this before, like that fish tank effect. Like
yeah.
we're just looking to like really just kind of clean that up and work on that transition with the ground and stuff. And on that you got like a triple A illustration. This guy's awesome.
Yeah, definitely off in the right direction, no doubt. So another 2 thumbs up. I'm
Hmm.
running out of thumbs here. All right. Wow.
This is his other one.
Oh, this is the same guy.
Same guy.
Yeah, Eric too. Okay, awesome. Yeah,
I normally try to do one on, but yeah, he had two, so we could just talk about him for over 1 minute.
absolutely. Okay, go for it. Go for it.
It'd be great if this guy was almost in that same illustration as his sidekick.
Hmm.
Like, kind of luring
That's a
behind
good
him.
point.
Yes, master, I get you the lantern. Like, he's going around looking for berries or whatever they do together. I don't know, because I love the designs on both of them. Like, look at that look he has. He's got that look like, don't oppress me. Like, look at him. He's like, I'm the lantern
He's
carrier.
dark, yeah. And you know what? And I'm seeing the trend now in Eric's work is that he's very strong on character. There's a lot to be said
Like,
there.
there's creature design elements in the shoulders, the little shield blade here, and then the lantern itself. Like, this is a really strong motif you got going here, and you could even almost push that with the other guy too and make them quite the pair.
I really like this character. Yeah,
You can make
yeah.
like a duo, like you can make a whole series of images. You could build a portfolio off. I could build a portfolio off these two character designs alone.
Yeah.
Really go crazy with them.
Absolutely. Now, what I'm thinking here, this is a dark character, right? And I like the fact that you kept it dark. You keep him in the dark. He's got a dark personality. I mean, I don't even have to ask you if that's your intention. It's right there, right? You have that lantern there. Now, having the lantern doesn't mean you have to light the character. But what you can do is light a part of him to bring out the material of his suit. You can have a little glint of light off of that moon to help that thing catch the light, which would be a nice visual element to add that full range of contrast. Because what is missing overall is a full range of contrast, but that doesn't mean you have to go light, dark. You can have just a little spot of bright light. That's your full range of contrast. But you have a good excuse to do that, yet don't let that light reach his face. Keep the face in the dark. Maybe have a little bit of a highlight catch off the bottom of his eye, a little speckle of light, just to help his eyes pop so you can really see that that unimpressed expression on his face, right?
You know what's kind
Little, little glints. Yeah.
you know what's kind of giving me a little chuckle over here is I'm looking. He looks like he's a woodland type of warrior of something like out of Pan's Labyrinth or something. But then
Yeah, yeah,
he's got these proper little shorts and stockings and shoes.
yeah.
Like
It's like
he just went to the woodland shoe outlet.
mommy made him wear it, and he's like, I have to wear these
But yet
fucking
again, you could
socks.
have a whole story around them. But it's kind of like part of him, and I like it. It's
Like
just
my
funny to me.
grandmother, you look so handsome. Oh, pink Angora sweater, and he's sitting there, kill me now, please kill me now. That's awesome. I love
Awesome.
that.
Let's see what's next. Great job again, Eric.
Beautiful, yeah, beautiful work,
You have some
Eric.
good ideas in that head.
Yeah. Ooh, let me see what this is.
Oh, what is
And
the
is this
Cinder Bird?
Fadel Adam? Adam or Adarn? Adam. Yeah, Adam. Ooh, nice name, I have to say. Well, cheers on that name. Well done. Again, beautiful design and excellent. 150% awesome presentation and beautiful design. Nice, sharp read. Beautiful use of contrast and texture. Frig. What?
I think the only thing with the
stumped.
presentation is to take some of that color out of the background. It's like a combination of like the same colors that are made up in the creature, and it doesn't really just help. I don't think it's adding anything by having like all these kind of what are they like magentas and cyans, just like
Desaturated. Yeah,
desaturate the heck out of that
yeah.
and maybe
That'll help
just
the
give it
character
like a
pop.
monotone. Yeah, this is just we're looking at this over like a gradient, and it's just like just an unnecessary bit of overstimulant. But the creature design itself, since that's what we're looking at, is really good. And
Yeah,
I like the different aspects of it. Like you can see these tail feathers, and this is like not being shy. A good example of not being shy with your design. You
yeah,
have like
yeah.
these nice kind of flowing bits of the tails and different parts of them. You got the leg feathers and then all the little claws and the beak, all tied well. Like you didn't hold back, and I really like that.
You know what else I like here, and that's something that everybody can like. I would want to share this information with everybody else. Is the dramatic use of big and small, right? The dramatic use of big and small. These little tiny little this little feather pattern here, and then you get little like almost like leafy feathery type of designs here, and then a couple of long ones. Whew! See how that exaggeration creates a really dynamic push, and it's very visually stimulating. And then you have the tail feather, and then you get these long tentacles that come out. There's a lot to be said in that. There's a lot of visuals, the contrast of form, the contrast of scale and form. And again, here in the face, tiny little beak, big head. There's a lot to be said in that in terms of stimulating design. But like Tyler said, take the saturation and maybe raise the value a little bit of that background will help those characters be more of a prominent feature. They won't get overpowered as much by that background.
And he's the first one to really kind of show orthographic views. He's got
Yeah.
that side, and this is perfect for game development. They
Oh yeah.
love seeing, and I've done dozens of this stuff myself with characters
Yeah.
because they always make you do two to three angles, so it shows that you're consistent and you can basically problem solve, in which
Yeah.
that makes you super valuable, as a asset designer. And yeah, the only thing, if I was going to critique the drawing itself, would just be kind of push these forms a little bit. It's looking just a little flat in the core body area with the neck and stuff. But other than that, it's really well.
And another thing, if when you're doing one of the reasons why people avoid a full frontal view is because you lose a lot of forms. So one of the tricks for this in this particular case is to push value, exaggerate the
Yeah,
value of it.
get really
So I
dark
make
in here.
darker here, bring in a deeper shadow here to help those hands pop a little bit,
Hmm.
and that way you'll be able to understand one form is in front of the other. But yeah, that's
Yeah, this
I
looks
don't
like
know.
something you could see on Pandora in what's it, Avatar 2. Crazy bird.
Done, man. Done. You want a job in Avatar? I give you a job in Avatar.
Awesome
Don't
job.
worry about it. I do it all the time. There we go. All right. Next. Oh, wow. Okay. There's a lot of storytelling going on in this piece, so let's come in closer.
What
See all
is
this
going
detail.
on here?
Huh.
I don't even remember seeing this one. Like the Hills. I don't want to mess his name up again.
Gil Chavez.
The Hill Chavez.
Yeah.
We probably both just messed it up.
Gil.
Awesome.
It's Gil. Gil. Gil Chavez. Yeah. All right. So.
I like this Russian-looking guy on top of this giant bat. Like, look at it. He's got his hat, but he's like strapped to this thing.
I like the heaviness. He looks like heavy and just sitting there going.
Like, what are these guys doing? What do you think he's collecting there? Are those berries?
Yeah. It's
Pears?
kind of like
Fruit?
yeah. They're like I guess, little creatures or it's a giant world. There's a nice scale comparison here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there is a lot going on here. This is
And there's a very
really creative.
classical illustration style to this. This kind of stuff I used to read in fantasy books a lot when I was a kid.
Hmm.
That type of that treatment, it's a very unique type of treatment. It's very like MMO books type of, like role playing books illustration feel to it that I really, really like. I really take to that. It's kind of nostalgic.
So let's just quickly critique a few of the
Sure,
aspects
go for
about
it.
this. Again, the overall consistency of the polish, and there seems to be like I think this could benefit from a stronger value structure.
Yep.
Right now, everything's kind of like dark light, dark light, dark light, dark light, all throughout it. If you simplify like this whole region, all right, foreground, the bat, it's almost you have like a perfect, layer, like a layered cake of three. You have the sky, the bat in the middle, and then the ground. But like, and that's kind of like a quasi tough value structure to, but really you could just push how light is affecting different areas of the structure of the composition to really kind of push some of these forms.
Yeah.
Because right now it all kind of hits you at once. Even though my eye does go right to the bat, it's just a lot.
Yeah, compositionally it's strong.
Hmm.
You've got a very strong composition, and furthermore, your use of value at the top, where that character is against the light in the top, immediately draws your attention up to him, who would be very easy to lose otherwise, right? You'd be very easy to not even notice that he was there. But because we don't necessarily get a particular sense of depth in this piece. That it's hard. It's very easy to kind of get lost in this heavy use of value. Like big
Yeah,
jumps in value. And the other thing is that the little streaks of light you've got, those three streaks of light that come
those
up
are
from the top,
extremely distracting. I just have to say.
I would say take them out.
Yeah, remove them. They're not
Yeah,
doing anything for the piece.
your piece will be more successful without them because what you're suggesting is yes that there's a beam of light coming up from the top, but it's too literal. It's like forms of light. It's just doop doop doop
Like there's
three
a
streaks.
disco ball, like out of off screen.
And they don't shine a light on anything in particular, right? They're just there for the sake of being there. And I'd say take them out. You're going to have a stronger piece of artwork without them. You always have to answer why. Why did I put them in there? If people say, "Oh, I just thought it would be cool to put in light," well, then take it out.
Because it's weird because the light is like over the sun source seems to be in this corner, but then we just have these out of nowhere. It just confuses me.
Yeah, yeah. I can see the decorative side to it, like to add detail and visual immersion. I would take that out and maybe add a little bit, some kind of information in the background to suggest what's going on. Are those trees? Is it the side of a mountain? Where are we exactly?
And the other thing too is like, why is the bat wing this light?
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of blown out to even like a white, where indicating that there's like another giant spotlight right behind the Batwing right here. But even if that was the case, this would just be really saturated. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be full blown out like this.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, those three beams of light are making us think the light's coming from the top. When in fact, if we look along the rim here, we've got that fur catching the light, and the light coming from back here. We go, oh, okay, the light's shining through his wing. But I didn't know why like Tyler, I didn't know why this bat wing was light when I thought the light was coming from the top. But as soon as I took that out and I went, oh, okay, light shooting in through here makes perfect sense. Right? I understand because the light's coming from behind him, illuminating his wing. So yeah, yeah.
Awesome idea though. What a trip.
What a trip!
Really
This
cool.
is nostalgic for me here, so that's cool. All right. Ooh,
It's like
wow!
like a
Holy
comic
smokes! What do
book
we got
cover.
here? Oh wow! Oh wow!
Fun
Check this
little
out.
Earth Guardian.
Yeah. Oh wow! I got to take a moment just to take it all in. Yeah. So go for it. What's your?
I
Wow, it's
like I
beautiful.
like the little tourist guy. Looks like he's trying to get a picture of this, and he doesn't seem to be bothered by it at all. He's just what he's like. I'm just trying to move, just trying to move. Maybe he's and he's got little birds flying around. Maybe there's like a bird sanctuary up there, and it's cool idea.
There's a lot of detail in this too. Even like I'm looking at when you like again. You remember we were talking about before? You got to catch them and then you got to keep them. Well, this is keeping me because I'm looking at it and it's taking me a minute or two to scan around the image and get all of these details, like little waterfalls and little rocks and a little bit of a glowing pond here and this little tree. Everything has a very unique identity. The little bits of moss
Yeah,
coming
my
off of his
favorite
chin.
aspect of this
You know?
image is this whole design of like the head and with the neck and kind of like in this area. I really love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. The armor across the face. You know, I love the human reaction. You know, like a building just blew up and there's bodies flying, and everybody's like, the first instinct isn't run. It's like, shit, grab my phone, click, click, click.
I
You know,
know. Get my picture.
I just like to see him just go, you know, just get squished. You know, yeah, that's what you get for being stupid and texting. What can I tell you? But yeah, what can I offer to critique this piece? Well, I could say one of the things you could do in this particular case is there's a nice, although it's a blue sky and it's
It's
direct
it's
sunlight,
almost too simple. Like it was just a drag and drop gradient back there.
I feel a softness to this. You know, there's a soft rendering to this piece of art, which I personally love. We've had other people submit work like that that had
Hmm.
this kind of soft rendering, and I love that. Um, there's a few pieces that you've done, Tyler, where you kind of bring some of that ambient blue sky and you blend it into the character. You
Hmm.
know, you kind of bleed some of that ambient color into the silhouette of the character to soften certain areas.
These shadows would have some more of that fill light from the sky, that blue in them.
Yeah,
The deep shadows would be kind of more saturated in like a darker blue.
absolutely. That could really add a lot. And I'm also thinking here under the character because the light's coming from the atmosphere, but once we get under here, we should be getting some darks here. And that'll help create some visual contrast and depth to the overall piece because the light's coming from the top. We want to get some more depth
Yeah.
under here and maybe a bit of bounced color hitting off the bottom of the sky. And that I'd say would call it complete. You know, I
Yeah,
don't know.
John Singer Sargent did a lot of good examples of that, painting people in like bright sunny days, and you can kind of see how that, like the warmness, the if the light, in the sun, the sky is lighting up this grass, and it's kind of just anything right next to it will have this kind of orangey green, or yellowy green type of glow to it if it's near
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's what would kind of rim light almost underneath these modern
Yeah, that
forms.
would be beautiful for this piece. Yeah.
I mean, this is more the way that the way the sky is rendered and stuff. This is kind of like it gives me that kind of storybook kind of feel to it.
Mm,
But
absolutely.
then he's kind of rendered in a more serious kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess getting up the overall consistency of it would not hurt at all. Like just doing like a little bit of polish on the trees, at the top. It's just here. I think it's just a little too obvious. You just kind of went in with a custom brush and just dazzled it around. And then like I like the idea of these pink ones, but like maybe we could. That's like two though. So let's make that like a third. Let's make either make like a third, like kind of pinkish tree somewhere, or bring that color with some flowers in around the ground because right now you just generally want to avoid the rule of two
Yeah.
unless it's really needed for some kind of story element.
And that pink is going to help your eye bounce around the image too. So you want
Hmm.
people to look everywhere. So you're going to put little visual cues to draw the eye through the piece. Yeah. Even on the face, have a little bit of red somewhere or something like that. A little bit of red here on the inside, dark red, red around the eyes to help pull your eye to there. Because these are all areas of importance. And by just having it here, you're basically saying this is where I want people to look. When in fact, you want people to be probably focusing more on this whole area here.
Yeah, I mean
Right?
you could bring in some more yellows with spots on the ground, or
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just you have basically he kind of feels like almost monotone with just the greens, and then you have like these just two are like the only warm colors in the entire scene. It's standing out probably more than intended.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. I'm really taken by this
Great
piece
by
of
the
artwork.
design.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, so let me see what we got. Ooh, ah. Ooh, wow, what do we got here?
The Nimbus King.
The Nimbus Jacob Stirk. Oh god, that's a cool name.
Hmm.
Jacob Stirk. Wow. All right. I'm so jealous.
I
I gotta get a name change, man. I gotta get a name change. Yeah.
I really like the design and the idea of this. Again, first and foremost, and the use of contrast and color is really well. And I will go out. I'll just say now, the only thing I would do to critique this is to add more form and depth. And I think you could do that by adding a little bit of a form change on the balloon, and then making a few of these like right now I'm looking at this and it feels like the clouds and like this monster is all on kind of one flat layer. Like you could add shadows on like the clouds, like as if the clouds were a ground plane themselves. You can put cast shadows on them from other clouds. You can add suggestions of like wispier clouds in the background. Just layers and layers of sky. I think would
Right.
really like this is all just way too flat up here in terms of lighting. The way it's lit, it's just all like lit. You could put parts of this really kind of like in here, like deep in shadow with like these blues and Yeah, I think you're just playing it a little safe with the colors. You could really show a lot up here with colors and stuff. And I think looking at some art books or something from like DreamWorks animation style, um, imagery might kind of inspire you to help or help clarify what I mean by that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're spot on. And like that, and you're also looking here. We've got that
There's
balloon. I
no
didn't spot that at
contrast.
first. You need a bright red. If you're going to have a small element, but a small important element, you want to have the reds and yellows in there. You want to
Hmm.
catch that color late, and because it's small, it's not going to overpower the piece. It's going to create a nice visual balance because the overall piece is very cool. So having that little warm yellow red, hot air balloon is going to be an eye grabber, right? Um, and also just do be careful with this tangent here, as if it's almost sitting on the cloud type of
Yep.
idea. Uh, think about a circular composition. I would be tempted to take this cloud out, just end it off here, so it's creating a bit of a circular composition. If you're thinking about it, these two hands and all of these elements do create good directional elements towards the focal point, but what if you, instead of having the hand pointing to, you have the object here and the hand pointing at it like this, what if the hand was going to grab it, creating a
Hmm.
circular movement around your focal point, and that would help create that nice circular composition. See, have that hand reaching out in a circular motion to grab it like this, and it would also create less of a redundancy. You have the two hands pointing like this, you'd have one hand pointing like that, you have the other one going like this, so you have a bit of a visual contrast between the two hands as well. um, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, absolutely
Awesome
beautiful.
design. It's a beautiful, majestic piece that's also frightening.
Incredible imagination. Like I would buy a book just for this cover.
Hmm.
Absolutely. All right. Ooh, ooh, oh, God. This
Mecha
shit's fun.
Turtle.
All right. Let's go for it, Tyler.
I
Pick him
like
apart. Destroy him.
I actually like the styling and the rendering of this a lot. I think if you're gonna go with a more loose or painterly style, this is a better example of how to approach that. Just because everything, how consistent everything is,
Yeah.
in terms of the presentation, which is important. Like you can't have if we like super rendered and cleaned up every edge on this turtle and then kind of had this guy like this, that would kind of clash a bit. But because the edge and the surface treatment is so consistent throughout the image, it's how you kind of pull off that style.
Yeah.
But it's great. I mean, awesome, attention to detail. Especially, I love what's going on here. Like this guy's riding on here, and he's got his little cat buddy. He's
Mm.
strapped all this luggage to here, and I don't know what he's doing. He's gonna fight the turtle with the horns and the satellite arrays. I don't know. With the antennas, it's an awesome picture.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it really helps that you kind of have the motion down too. Everything's kind of sweeping through this image throughout.
Beautiful use of movement. Yeah, I really like that. I really like that. Everywhere.
I
You're a movement painter. You can see it everywhere throughout the piece.
I honestly don't have much to critique on this. It's put together really well in my opinion.
I think it's beautifully put together. I think the only critique I might give it is the only thing I might do is to make all of the cool blues and greens pop. I would be very tempted, and you have a good excuse for this, to put a little bit of a warmer orange or something like that, maybe catch a little bit, maybe
On those
here
undersides,
on the
like
cat, because
yeah.
I didn't get the cat right away, and catch a little bit of that warmth in here, and that'll create a nice visual contrast between the warm and cools. And the other thing I would do is have that cat a little bit more in silhouette. He kind of gets a little bit lost in terms of color and
Yeah.
composition, that tangent here. I would move this over and create a better silhouette for the cat, because
All
the
about the
cat
cat.
is the charm of this piece. It's his little buddy that he takes with him everywhere, right? So I want to see that cat. I want that cat to be an important element of the piece. So a little bit of orange catching off of his fur, maybe at the tips, and isolate him a little bit. Bring this over and have a little bit of this lighter background come in here, and maybe just his tail comes into the background.
The other
You
thing I
know?
could add actually, I mean this is clearly a turtle, and this kind of looks like the head of a turtle. It almost seems like there should be a small rider on this turtle head, kind of, and they're gonna meet up, and they're either gonna do battle or trade something. Because it looks like he's
Yeah,
coming to trade. Like you could increase the narrative in this piece like tenfold by putting like a little rider up here with maybe some junk too.
yeah. Who is that second turtle? Is it an enemy? Is it going to
Yeah.
attack him, or is it like a trading post? Like is he going to go and refresh his supplies? That kind of an idea. That's a very good point.
Now.
This turtle is lacking narrative. This guy
Hmm.
is just riddled in
Filled with
narrative,
it.
but this guy is kind of going, well, why is he there? Right?
Let's like really push that context of that turtle up there,
Yeah.
and it'll just I think it'll really make the piece outstanding.
Yeah. I really, really love this piece of artwork.
I know I love the
25
design.
thumbs up. Absolutely. All right. Let's see what we got next. How many we got left, by the way? I'm not sure how many we got left.
I don't know, but
It's
we
quite a
haven't
few.
hit the same one yet, so
All right.
let's just power through this.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, visual storytelling,
John's.
10 stars.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I love this. Absolutely love this.
My biggest critique on this is my initial impression was it looks like he's just kind of missing a jaw because of how flat and underneath it looks like this is like the start of like a massive mouth. But then
Yeah.
like I look at it again, it's like oh maybe his mouth's just closed and that's what
Yeah.
this
Like
probably
an old man,
represents.
with no teeth.
Yeah, like meh. Like but let's emphasize that a little bit more. Maybe make a little extruding like overbite or what's the
The
term when
teeth
your
sticking out.
bottom jaw sticks out a little more like kind of
Underbite.
like
Yeah. Underbite. Yeah.
underbite
Yeah.
giving him something like just maybe emphasize a little of that a little bit more to
Yeah.
show some of that form under there because I just it lost me for a second initially.
Like kind of, you think about the character of this face. It's like, it's like, just picture him being like an old guy, the teeth
Yeah,
stick, you
he doesn't
expect
have his
his dentures to
dentures.
go, "Bleh," yeah, that type of thing. And you know what else could help too? What made it unclear is that you have all of these cracks everywhere, but this is the same value. If you really wanted
Hmm.
this to look like a mouth opening, have it darker. So you can really see that it enters inside a hole. We can get that ambient occlusion in there. Another thing I noticed here is the light, just in terms of the placement of this character, dark on medium, he doesn't push well enough. What I would do is I would either
Yeah,
shift the character into the light, so we get a nice light on dark contrast, or move or add more light to this area,
because it
right?
works well with the staff the way that contrast, but this contrast should be like more focused on the character.
We lose the character.
It's kind
Yeah,
of it looks subtle at first, but it'll actually make a world of difference.
yeah, yeah. I would move him right, or in terms of composition, it's a better place like this. You don't want to put him directly under him per se,
Hmm.
like the fact that he's a little bit here. I would actually think in terms of composition to crop it here and have him moved over here. So there's
Yeah,
a bit
that'd be
more of
better.
a going. You're
Because
you're respecting the rule of thirds a little bit more in that
there's
particular
a
case. Yeah.
that slight tangent that he's just aligned, the character perfectly underneath that side of his face. Where
Yeah.
yeah, it would be stronger if he was just kind of a little over here.
You're just thinking in terms of the area of storytelling. It's just here, right? It's just here in this area. Yet we have all that and we have all that. That isn't necessarily justified, right? If I'm going to have this negative space, I want to find something interesting in the form, some leaves, some shrubbery, some kind of detail in design. There's got to be a purpose to that. Otherwise, I would take my composition in so that the area I have of focus is better centered. I have a better centered composition. This piece could survive being cropped from here to here. But the fact that you have that space, I would take my two characters and go, separate them a little bit, get that rule of thirds going on there, and move the character into against a lighter background to be able to create a better sense of
The
some nice contrast.
the other thing I want to reflect back on too again is like the edge control. Like it looks like you just get really ambitious with like the texture or the custom brush, particularly in the leaves, where you might just want to slow it down a little bit and just be a little more deliberate with your placement and your structure of them. It'll help with your edges and it will not give it that obvious I stamp the custom brush like all over the foreground or in his roots and stuff like that. Just a little
Yeah,
more deliberate and careful. They say generally a good artist is very deliberate with every brushstroke he makes, and
yeah,
he makes it count. And that's
yeah,
just something to practice, over time. And I think it will definitely help this piece out.
yeah. Yeah, and technicalities. Like the problem with this piece is not narration, it's not rendering. It's you have a very beautiful brushstroke and a beautiful imagination. It's the technicalities of composition, and that would ultimately that would take it from a 7 on 10 to a 12 on 10 just by paying attention to little trivial things like that.
Hmm.
But there aren't big fixes. It's very quick fixes, that kind of
Awesome.
stuff.
Again, awesome idea, John.
Yeah, John Lau, beautiful work. All right. Julien Charlier. Frenchman.
I,
Julien.
I really like this idea.
Ouais, puis on va commencer en français aujourd'hui parce que voilà.
It's just simple
français.
enough and executed really well.
You just keep speaking English like, yeah, okay, I don't understand what the hell you're saying.
I have no idea what you're saying. You're just doing your thing. I'm gonna let you do that.
Yeah, I'm going to translate everything he says in French. No, but I love the character. Wow, look at that, and very immersive in design. You know, like the design, the character, the facial expression, the detail. There's a lot of immersion in this character. Absolutely beautiful.
Again, this is an idea of not holding back.
Yeah,
Like he went 100% with this, and it shows.
this character is a city in and of himself. You know, like
Yeah.
Tyler has his entire cityscape that he does, and you have all of that contained in a single character. You know, it's the same level of love and treatment and appreciation of that single character, right?
Hmm.
What's really distracting, and you'll probably agree with me on this, is that big, rich, dark, saturated background that is
Yeah.
doing nothing to help your picture.
It's a little jarring.
Yeah, it's you've got this strong background of green, and you don't have anything nearly that saturated in your character at all. I would,
Make
honestly
it
take it way down. Yeah,
Yeah, like desaturate that by like 80% even, and then add a
yeah,
little shadow or something underneath him. Be
yeah,
way better.
yeah. And I mean, you have that scale comparison shot on the right. Tighten it up, bring it in. There's a lot of unused space. And when it comes to doing an illustration, if you just wanted to focus on the character and you want to have the character and maybe that little example, I would bring it in close. I would tighten these up, cut
Hmm.
out all of that unneeded space because it's an eyesore. You're sitting there going, you're looking at a lot of blankness, and that takes away from the power of your character. If you just cropped your character nice and tight, you just crop your character, then you've got a fully more immersive illustration. But because you placed him in so much negative space, it's taking away from him,
You
right?
could simplify both these tasks too by like if you were just to take this and turn this into the illustration and crop it and enlarge it in the whole screen. Is then
Yeah,
you get the context of the guy, you could have like a out of focus background, and then you can get in some good hand practice and illustration like by having it first and foremost. Like,
absolutely.
you could have
Yeah,
like an amazing illustration. Like
yeah,
this thing right here would make one.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
hard work is already done. You design the guy. Just like blow
Yeah.
this up and make this an awesome illustration. I would do.
The guy there's enough detail in the guy that he can stand on his own.
Hmm.
You don't need to frazzle dazzle. Yeah, you don't need it, right? The character is a standalone character. He's got all the detail that he's a landscape in and of himself. Keep him as that. Don't kill it, you know? And yeah,
Awesome job, Julian. Way
yeah.
to go.
Julien, 5
Quick,
étoiles.
you get some quick
Super.
fixes on that, but it'll be amazing.
Yeah, beautiful. Ooh, check this out. Holy shit. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, from Marc Antoine. I like
Beautiful
them.
section.
I love the motion.
Yeah. Nice, beautiful, excellent use of diagonal line in this composition. Everything is on a diagonal. You've got that nice sense of movement in there and a nice sense of contrast that's creating a nice sense of depth in the piece as well. And I like the light on dark, dark on light. There's a really nice use of that. This rock in the foreground it hurts. It
Hmm.
hurts my soul. It hurt me. It's the same value and same intensity, and it's creating a really awful eyesore tangent with this dinosaur. Lower the value, make it dark, and have it nice tail overlapping rock. That's gonna sell your depth. This rock is doing a terrible injustice to your artwork.
Yeah.
It's take it out, you know?
Yeah. I agree 100%. And just if they're in the the prominent foreground, you might be able to soften some. Either you can full blown make them out of focus to make it to emphasize the motion of these characters,
Yeah.
or get them just all in shadow. But still, you have to indicate maybe a little bit of that texture on them. Like right now, it looks like the way they were rendered, it's just like gradients drop throughout, and it's inconsistent with the rendering of the rest of the scene.
Yeah.
And my other beef was how well everything's constructed, but the shadows on these two characters are
The
just so
airbrush shadow.
generic. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like that giant ellipse shadow underneath them.
Yeah.
Where I don't know, I'd have to do some film studies or just a little bit of research myself on how to properly do that. But right now,
Yeah.
that's a bit it's jarring how you approach that.
Look at it this way: if you take it out, your painting will improve.
Yeah.
There's a few elements in there, a few elements like a shadow is a shadow. A shadow is not just you see video games and they have that perfect little circle under them, that ellipse shadow. That's not what a shadow looks like. Always use reference. If you're not sure what a shadow looks like, look it up and paint and
Like
reference it. Yeah,
yeah, there's ways you can copy and paste the entire character and then fill it with the shadow color on a separate layer, of course, and then
Yeah.
skew it underneath them. Like you could, there's ways of calculating how that directional light might, and then of course it'll look just a lot more accurate in general.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, my other big beef with this was just how cut out these edges are on like the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Like that looks like, all right, that's a dead giveaway that you lasso tooled that
Yeah.
almost. I mean, I'd be really surprised if you didn't. But that's just another thing that since it's in the background, you're in motion, go over this with like the blur tool a little bit, and manually just soften that up a little bit. It's just a little too sharp and kind of jaggy.
And the sharpness makes it creates a strong focus, right?
Yeah.
You want the sharpest element in your scene to be
Right.
those two characters,
Like
right?
you want like this level of sharpness in terms of like maybe like a little bit of lighting catching the top of this creature, like kind of picking out some of the light around him.
Yeah.
Like you have underneath the shadow on this side. You want that with like the light kind of
Yeah.
coming up through here.
Absolutely. Yeah. A few little like I think the biggest terms is like remember what's your area in your area of focus and tangents. Be very careful because you got another one here. You've got his foot touching the rock. Tangent is you
I
want
didn't
a
even
clear
notice that one.
overlap or you want a clear separation, but you don't want to do this because that flattens your image. It kills the sense of depth. So I would move this rock over so that there was a separation between his foot and the rock, and this one I would have completely overlap and darken it. So it clearly shows one object is in front of another object, and it's not doing this awkward
Not
thing
barely
like that,
touching.
right? You do this or
like
do
when-
this, but don't do this, right?
It's like when you come in my swimming pool, you just don't go waist deep. You either go all the way in or you can sit out on the patio, you know?
Stick your head under. There you go. There, that's how you do it.
You fully commit.
That's why I'm never jumping in your pool. How about that? Because Adam, no, that's not how you swim. You know,
This is how you swim.
You're sitting. Yeah, okay, all right. All right. Oh, hey,
Is that it?
we came full circle. Holy
Woo!
shit! We're back to Marius's work.
Awesome
Oh, wow,
job,
I didn't
guys.
think we'd make it through all that work.
I don't
That's a
even-
hell of a heavy week.
Yeah.
So let's get them all back up here. Let's get them all back up.
All right, so we're back and we decided on two different kind of categories for winners.
Yeah.
And we both agreed that these two were awesome examples of each category. So on one hand, on the left, we have Brooks, which is like just a clear design.
Yeah.
And then because there were several of these illustrations or, images that were either just like kind of character or creature designs and the others were more in an illustration context. So that's how we kind of separated two categories. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
overall, we really liked the execution of the design on this. Not to say it's like the most creative or the best actually idea out there, but design wise and execution, we felt it was really strongly done.
I was strongly taken in Brooks' piece. I'm very strongly taken by the looseness of it. That actually I can feel these very delicate, the delicate movement of all of these fins. Absolutely, I'm totally charmed by that piece of artwork. And in the other one, it's really honest to God, just an awesome piece of storytelling. A really awesome piece of
You could
storytelling.
really crank it up to 12 as soon as I don't know if you want to add a character on that turtle. For me, it would do that personally.
Yeah, and a little bit of a color, that little bit of like a deep reddish orange would completely balance the entire coolness of this piece and help draw some attention to that cat and any surrounding elements. A little bit of a tweak to the composition, but I think overall, this is extremely immersive and full of imagination. I really love this as a storytelling piece.
I'd just like to again emphasize that everyone did such an amazing job that we actually kind of had to go off camera for a minute to really kind of decide which ones we were going to pick as just our personal favorite. Doesn't mean any of the other ones. These are necessarily better than someone else's, but these are just our personal favorites.
It really comes down to taste, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really comes down to personal taste. I'm sure if somebody else had hosted this, you would get two different winners.
Two entirely different images.
But we really we had a hard time agreeing on which ones we liked. But in the bottom line was these are the ones we just couldn't argue with. So it really came down to that. So really, hats off to everybody who submitted their work. I think it's been
Amazing
exciting.
job.
This is an exciting competition. Had a lot of fun.
So hopefully we'll keep getting lots of entries like this and break them off into two sessions because I love the amount of variety and just the quantity that we got this month. It was amazing.
Yeah, it really caught me when he told me that there were this many submissions. I was like, "What? How the hell are we going to get through all of that?"
I know.
No, but keep it coming, man. Shit. I mean, keep it coming. This is fun stuff. This is really fun stuff, and really beautiful work is coming in. So keep it coming, man. Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching, and I hope you were able to take something from this. And I'll be posting the next contest details in as many places as I can when I have them. So, again, really thank you for participating. This has been fun, and I hope you learned. You know, hope you're able to take away something.